Aspyr Media is slowly getting a reputation in the Star Wars community. Their work in bringing back Jedi Outcast and Academy to new platforms is much appreciated, not only by Star Wars gamers, but gamers in the handheld world. That reputation is being pushed forward as a current rumor is spreading that they're working on Knights of the Old Republic. But that is just a rumor. What we're going to talk about today is the Star Wars shooting game they just released for PS4 and Switch. A dark and gritty game made with Unreal Engine. Here is my review of Star Wars Republic Commando for the Nintendo Switch. Republic Commando, or RC, takes place in the gap between episodes 2 and 3 of the Star Wars saga. You take control of Delta Squad, a group of elite-trained clone troopers sent around the galaxy on various missions. From the Battle of Geonosis in Episode 2 to the Battle of Kashyyyk in Revenge of the Sith, this game shows a fair chunk of the Clone War from the perspective of these elite troopers. Now there's a fair amount of charisma between the different troopers as the game goes on, with them constantly throwing witty lines towards one another. But the real gem of RC is the voice acting. For Boss, the leader of the squad and who you play as, Tamora Morrison was brought in for voice work. Morrison is, of course, the actor who played Jango and Boba Fett in the Star Wars movies and recently came back to reprise Boba in The Mandalorian Season 2. When it comes to gameplay, Republic Commando is a first-person shooter with team-based elements thrown in. Now before getting started, let us talk about what Aspyr changed between the original and this new version for PS4 and Switch. The 16-person multiplayer mode has been removed along with the cheat codes from the Xbox port. Aspyr addressed this, mentioning that their port was to be a single-player only experience with a modernized control setup. Considering how team-focused the gameplay is even in the campaign, it really is a bummer that the team versus team multiplayer mode was removed. This next part isn't really a removed feature, but something worth noting. You only really have 6 different save slots that you can make manual saves on. So if you're like me and like to have saves across pretty much the entire game, you're very quickly going to get to the point where the game's going to tell you, hey, you've run out of save slots, please delete one to save again. What we have left is the campaign mode, taking Delta Squad on 3 lengthy campaign missions. Main progression through this mode has you navigating 3D areas and shooting down enemies. You've got the typical waves of enemy troops to come down, but Republic Commando has a lot of team-oriented features. You only control Boss, but can give orders to the 3 AI companions that follow you around. There are lots of interactable objects around for sniper maneuvers and mounting turrets to explosive demolition of barriers and terminal slicing. You can assign the AI to any of these tasks, or you can do them yourself. All of this is embedded in the teammate aspect. Every task you do has a timer with it. Many areas have endless waves of enemy troops requiring you to provide cover until that task is done. The game also has friendly fire on by default, and I've never found a way to disable it. So not only do you have to take down enemies, but you've got to be careful whenever the squad runs into a fight together. Your grenades can easily kill your group as well as the enemy troops. The actual fighting is fairly simple, sometimes a little too simple. The arsenal you get in Republic Commando pretty much revolves around one weapon. Your main blaster gets modifications as you play through to change into different modes for rifle, sniper, or grenade launcher shooting. You do get sub-weapons on occasion, but most of the game is done with the one weapon. Although that aspect of combat is pretty simple, RC has a pretty high level of difficulty, with each enemy requiring focused fire to kill quickly, and many units that follow them are labeled as elites. These are mini-boss-like enemies that require your whole squad to focus fire on, either to take down an armor or shield or just throw a ton of damage at it until they're taken out. As a Star Wars fan myself, I enjoyed that this system made super battle droids and droidicas seem like a much more intimidating set of foes than most media portrays them. But not everything is good. This isn't organically causing difficulty, but the scope system of the weapon's sniper mode can cause a bit of awkwardness. The sniper modification can use 2 different scope levels, but you need to cycle through all of them to go back to the normal camera angle. On many occasions, I would go into the 10x zoom, take out an enemy, but to go back and continue onward, I had to cycle the 20x zoom and then again to go back to normal shooting. Now let's get out of that negative aspect and onto content and length. Despite only having 3 missions you go through, the campaign of RC will last a fair bit of time. My first trek through took me around 12 hours, which isn't bad at all for a $15 game. Now, since the developer claimed this was a single-player adventure with modernized controls, let's talk about those controls. To be honest, the default control scheme is pretty awkward with a lot of typical shooter functions tied to buttons that are very out of the ordinary. Zoom is done by clicking the right stick, jump is done with Y, and those are just a couple examples. But the nice thing is the controls are completely customizable. Within a minute or so, I had zoom set to ZL, jump to B, reload to Y, and everything was running and feeling very comfortable. Now, presentation. Visually, the game looks alright. A lot of it is dark and hides some of the jagginess of the character models, which definitely helps. Republic Commando has always had a very dark and gritty look, which is what makes it stand out among other Star Wars entries. The main problem here is not how it looks, but how it plays. While Jedi Outcast and Academy were beautifully optimized for the Switch, Republic Commando isn't. The FPS is very unstable, jumping around in the 20s and 30s pretty much without end. And once you go into handheld mode, those FPS problems get a lot worse. Now, at the end of the day, most of these FPS drops you can deal with, but select areas just have a meltdown when you go into them. A couple select areas of the Geonosis mission had the frame rate drop so far that it looked like a slideshow and froze up every few seconds. Whenever this happens, I always thought the game was about to crash on me for a good minute or two straight. And the biggest problem here is some areas that were smooth before can easily turn into that slideshow factor when you reload it. I had no problems with the ending of the Geonosis mission in handheld mode the first time I went through it, but when I forgot to save and had to go back, I barely got through it at all because every time I turned, the screen just stopped. That's all I have to say regarding performance, so now let's go into battery life. On the original model, Star Wars Republic Commando has a battery range of 3 hours and 13 minutes up to 4 hours and 53 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 3 hours and 22 minutes up to 5 hours and 3 minutes. And on the Redbox or V2 2019 model, it has a range of 6 hours and 4 minutes up to 7 hours and 8 minutes. In conclusion, Republic Commando joins the Switch's growing library of Star Wars adventures. Now on the downside, this new port had its multiplayer and cheats cut out on both Switch and PS4, and it's a poorly optimized port with lots of FPS and freezing issues. There is a fun and gritty shooter underneath these problems, but it might be worth it to wait for them to patch those slideshow areas before diving in. Reviews to go rates Star Wars Republic Commando for the Nintendo Switch a 5.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.